PSL class of 2021. Welcome to the first edition of PSL Class on the Grass. For all the face-to-face learners today, we're going to be outside the friendly confines of Manchester West because it is oppressively hot inside. For those of you who are learning remotely, we're going to share the exact same notes with you via this video. Our recommendation is that you use your notebook, take notes just like you would as if you're sitting in the classroom, because it's scientifically proven that you do in fact learn more if you write things down. Our objective for today, our learning target, is to identify and explain the roles that citizens can play in helping to address community needs. We're going to do that in a couple of ways. The first thing you have to do is read this article for homework. It's linked online for you remote learners, but it's by an author called Andrew Furco, and the title is Service Learning, A Balanced Approach to an Experiential Education. After you read that, or while you're reading that, we'd like you to take some notes. Any notes you take on that article you can use on the quiz that's going to take place on Friday as well as on Monday, since we're still on the split schedule. So please take copious reading notes. In particular, what you're going to find is that the quiz really focuses on this diagram at the bottom of page 2 and really goes into some detail about your reading of these different terms like volunteerism, community service, internships, and then on the back side, field education, service learning. So if you know those terms inside and out, as well as the examples that they state in this article, I suspect you'll do really well on the quiz. Let's get started with the notes. On the first day of class, we reviewed 3 distinct types of service. And we said it's really important that you know the difference between these, because depending on your personality, you might prefer one over the other. And when it comes time to select your volunteer placement, we want to make sure you end up in a placement that fits your personality. First type of service we described was when students interact with people they serve. That's referred to as direct service. That essentially occurs when you are working face-to-face with the people who you're volunteering with. The next type of service is performing service without first-hand contact of the recipients. We refer to that as indirect service. So those are the people who work behind the scenes, perhaps like the Pirate Power Pack program, packing bags for students that they'll never see. And then the last type of service we refer to as advocacy. When you are doing advocacy, you are educating the public about issues and unmet needs in their community. Shantytown being a great example of students who are educating the public about the problem of homelessness in our community. The new stuff for today is distinguishing among service programs. Specifically, what we're talking about are 3 experiential education programs we find here at the Perry Local Schools. We want to make sure that you know the difference. So when we're talking about those 3 programs, we're going to be talking about community service. An example would be if you ever were a community service aide with Mr. Niedzwiecki, where he assigned you to be an office aide or a classroom aide or something like that. Service learning, we'll use PSL as an example. And then lastly, internships. Prime example being the Learning Through Internships class, LTI, with Mrs. Soder. In terms of distinguishing between those programs, we're going to specifically look and see who is the primary beneficiary, what's the primary focus, is there curricular integration, and what's the nature of the service. And if we look at those categories or those criteria, we'll be able to clearly distinguish between the 3. Let's take them one by one. With community service, if you are an office aide or in Mr. Niedzwiecki's community service program, the primary beneficiary is the recipient, the person who's receiving the service. So if you're an aide in an elementary school classroom, clearly the person that you're serving, be that the teacher or the students in that class, are the beneficiaries of the work that you're doing. The primary focus is to provide meaningful service. That's the goal. Is there any curricular integration? Probably not. There's no learning objectives tied to being a community service aide at the high school. No doubt you're helping to implement curriculum at the elementary if you're volunteering down there, but there are no specific learning targets that you need to fulfill in order to get credit for being a community service aide in that program. And as far as the nature of the service goes, it's strictly based on community need. So in the community service programs case here at the high school. We're looking for needs on campus. A lot of teachers need help, whether that be grading papers, making copies, or doing one-on-one small group instruction with their kids. You're helping to fulfill that need. If we move over to service learning and PSL, ultimately in a PSL class, the primary beneficiary should be both the recipient and the provider. So all that means is that not only are the people you're serving benefiting, but so too are you. They say if service learning is working good, the volunteer becomes the student and the person being served becomes the teacher. It should be a reciprocal relationship. As far as primary focus is concerned, providing meaningful service and enhancing classroom instruction. So the point of service learning is to add meaning to the topics that we're discussing in class. Is there curricular integration? Absolutely. It's fully integrated into the curriculum of PSL. In fact, we're not going to send you to volunteer somewhere that does not align with the topic we discuss in class. One of the things kids often ask is, can I volunteer at the Lake Humane Society? While we think it's an awesome organization, an incredible nonprofit that does really good work, at the moment we don't have a unit addressing any of the issues affecting animals staying at the Humane Society. And as a result, we don't allow students to volunteer there because it wouldn't align or integrate with our curriculum. And then lastly, the nature of the service. It's going to be based on course objectives or learning targets. So again, if the service opportunity doesn't align, then we're not going to allow you to volunteer there. Lastly, we'll look at the internship program, LTI, Learning Through Internships with Mrs. Soder. In this case, the primary beneficiary is the provider, also known as the intern. Basically, the goal of that program is to prepare students to get their feet wet in a career field that they're interested in going into. The primary focus is to provide career development and professional preparation. As far as curricular integration, it's either co-curricular or supplemental. And what I mean by that is there are some kids who take LTI here on campus and there's a very strict curriculum that they follow. However, there's some kids who also do internships outside of the classroom as an independent study type of thing. And in that case, there's less curricular integration. And then lastly, the nature of the service is based on the student's career interest. So if you're in the internship class, they're only going to put you in a placement that matches what you want to do when you grow up, or at least something that you want to explore as a possible career. That's just an overview of these three different types of service. The one shortcoming of this is that it definitely puts each of these experiential education experiences into a box. And sometimes that's not always accurate. There are times when some of the things we do in service learning might look a little bit more like community service. Or if you happen to be volunteering in a spot that's also a career interest for you, it might look a little bit more like an internship. But we wanted to make you aware of the subtle differences between these programs to make sure that you are, in fact, getting out of this course what we want you to get out of this course. If you're volunteering somewhere and you do not see any alignment to what we're talking about in the classroom, we want you to let us know, because then it's really not service learning and it's really not working the way that it should.